let's see what we can do with EDU 487 assignment review for week 2. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So this week we're going to focus on cultural diversity, but if we think about it, the entire class deals with cultural diversity in some form or another. It's vitally important that we know that there are diverse cultures in our classroom because that should guide our teaching. So here we say that cultural diversity refers to differences among people because of their racial or ethnic backgrounds, language, dress, and traditions. Okay? So what does culturally diverse mean? It means the recognition of the abundant diversity of cultures. We recognize that there are different cultures in this world. Then we respect the differences. We acknowledge the validity of different cultural expressions and contributions. What did everybody contributed to the civilization of this American society, and we have to recognize that and understand why that's important. And valuing what other cultures offer. We are all different, but we all have something to offer. And encouraging the contribution of diverse groups, allow them, of course, to be able to participate, contribute, and not one race think that they are the end-all, be-all, do-all, know-all. Empowering people to strengthen themselves and others to achieve their maximum potential by being critical of their own biases and celebrating rather than just tolerating the differences in order to bring about unity through diversity. Okay? Any questions about cultural diversity? So why is cultural diversity important? Because our culture is what shapes each and every one of us. Our culture shapes our behavior and our identity. And our culture is our way of living. It refers to the languages that we share, the beliefs, the values that we have, our norms and behaviors. And of course, material objects that are passed down from one generation to the next. And I'm sure you probably have something in your family that has been passed down that you value very much. And that's part of your culture, and that's part of your family heirlooms or the things that your family feel are important. So week 2 assignment 1 is the Brown Eyes, Blue Eyes experiment, entitled A Class Divided by Miss Jane Elliott. In your assignment portal, you should be able to copy and paste this link into your web browser, and it should come up. But if it doesn't, if it doesn't open for you, just type in Brown Eyes, Blue Eyes experiment, A Class Divided by Jane Elliott, and you should find it. You are to, of course, view the video and then select. There are approximately 11 questions, but I will allow you to thoroughly answer the questions that you would like, at least 5 of those, okay? So you also have a week 2 assignment. Another assignment is a Prezi presentation. You can do a Prezi, and I have provided for you a link to locate a free online Prezi presentation. If you want to work through developing that Prezi or learn how to develop a Prezi, that is up to you. If your time does not permit and you feel most comfortable with the PowerPoint, I would accept either one. It doesn't matter to me. I'd like to see you venture out to a Prezi if you like, but hey, if you don't have the time, the PowerPoint will do the same. Remember to include an introduction slide with your name and the title, whatever you want to call your PowerPoint or your Prezi. Make sure you include a reference slide, and make sure that your PowerPoint or your Prezi is colorful. So then with that, with week 2, the assignment should have, I think, about 8 terms. Your Prezi or your PowerPoint presentation should define the following terms: diversity, cultural diversity, language diversity, cultural tourism, multicultural education, cultural responsiveness, family diversity, and socioeconomic diversity. So that's your PowerPoint. We will go through and identify and define each one of those terms. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So if you don't have any questions about that, let's move into the PPAT, okay? So we know that the PPAT is the Praxis Professional Assessment for Teachers. It is required, and I told you this last week, by the state of North Carolina for all those students who are student teaching. You will complete the Praxis Performance Assessment for Teachers, the PPAT, once you start student teaching, okay? Right now, you do not have to take it. All of the tasks are embedded into the courses here at the University of Mount Olive. So task one, of course, as you know, is in 487. So that's the only one that we're going to be concerned with for this class. So as I told you before, there is a passing score. Right now it's 38. There are 4 tasks. Task 1 is knowledge of students in the learning environment. Task 2 is assessment and data collection to measure and inform student learning. Task 3 is designing instruction for student learning. And task 4 is implementing and analyzing instruction to promote student learning. Okay? So let's delve into, and you have 4 artifacts that you have to submit during week 4. Now last week we did the contextual factors chart. So that one will be due next week. I've explained that in week 1. So if you have any questions, you can ask now, since you probably wasn't with me last week, but you can ask questions about that one if you like. So you'll have the contextual factors chart to upload in week 4. You'll have the instructional and support resources chart to upload. You will also have to do a communication home to the parents. That can be a letter. That's the easiest way, but it can be a newsletter. There are other people making contact and communication with parents through, I think, a class, Kojo or Google Meets or things of that nature. Ever what it is, ever how you communicate with your parents, it's fine with me. It's just that the letter is so much easier to upload. So. And also you'll have to upload a getting to know your students activity. So, and I'll talk about those 2 next week. So let's go ahead with the instructional support resources chart. The PPAT ETS says that an instructional and support resources chart covers a wide range of services and resources that are available within a school system to support instruction. So this is what we want you to do. We're going to ask you to look around the school. If you're in a school, if you're not in a school, you probably are going to have to talk with someone about these, the different types of resources that are available to that school, because you can utilize those resources to teach. So what we're doing is asking you to locate resources that you can use within your classroom to teach, okay? And they come from the community. What type of building or district policies or programs do you have? And we'll go through those. What type of support staff is at a school, particular school, your school? What types of instructional materials are at that school? Curriculum programs, what type of instructional technology is available? And access to student records. So it says this chart allows you to become familiar with what is available to you within your teaching context, and I just shared that with you. It says complete the chart by listing available instructional materials and resources, okay? So here, this individual has the community. There's the library there. There's a historical society or museum. There's some community organizations, Green Lamp, there's a Partnership for Children, there's United Way, and of course there's social services in the community that you can call on to come to school or do some things to help you. The court systems and the legal guardian and lighting programs, of course you can utilize that, of course, if you need to. Churches, sororities, parks and rec. So that's what that looks like, okay, for the community. The next one, what are some of the building or the district policies and programs? Here, they have the Marine Corps Family School Liaison Program. It says Chip and Connect Program. And what I like, this person didn't do that, but they listed a lot of things. So if you list the things, and what I think is important is that you tell me what the Chip and Connect Program is, okay? If you list that, tell me what it is so I can say, okay, yeah, I see that the student can utilize that in the classroom. And then just some other resources, STEMA, Okay, and then we have the support staff. We have bus drivers, teacher assistants. Most people know what an office assistant does, what the guidance counselor does, what the resource officers do. So that's okay, but when you come to areas similar to this, if it's a group of letters, then you might want to say what they represent. So this particular individual indicated some instructional materials. They use Google. They use what they call Common Air, ReadWorks, Class Dojo. I'm sure you're probably familiar with that. They use something called Glass Strategies and the SIOP models, visuals, manipulatives. So they have a lot of things that they use in order to teach in that school. So you don't have to list all of those, but if you list anything, just make sure that you kind of tell what they are. Like Rosetta Stone, we know that's a language program. So you can say language program to teach, you're using it for Spanish or you're using it for French because there's several. So that's what I would expect you to do. Okay. The next one is, of course, this is kind of the support staff. I'd probably put that one twice. Instructional materials, and I cut them out. So I think, let's see. All right. Curricular programs. This one has curricular programs, which I didn't cover on here, I don't think. Some of the curricular programs for that school would be Agribusiness Academy. They have the AIG program, Health Sciences Academy, Exceptional Children's Program, and of course they use the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. Also, for some instructional technology, they have Rosetta Stone, they have a CTE program, digital learning instructional materials, they have iPads, they have MacBooks, and smartboards. Then for the data collection or access to student records, of course they use PowerSchool, and they use something called EVAS, EVVAS, Education Value Added Assessment System. They also use little things like Quizlet, Kahoot, Study.com, and things of that nature. Okay, any questions? Now you can find these. I provided copies for you, sample copies, and you can go back and look at the sample copies because they're in your Moodle course. And also you can go to www.ets.org. You may look up PPAT, and you will find task 1, and in task 1 you will see the contextual factors chart. It's a Word document or it is a PDF. You may use the Word document, download it, and then fill it in, okay? And you will also find an instructional support and resources chart. So those are there, but you have to go to, I could probably upload those, but hey, I think it's good for students to do a little research. So if you go to www.ets.org, look up PPAT task 1, and when you look up building and submitting tasks, you will find that those two charts there.
Okay.
Okay, so what I wanted to do is to go through PPAT text box 1.12. Now last week I did the one that went along with your contextual factors chart 1.1.1. So we're going to do 1.1.2 today. Resources to enhance student learning. Okay? It says responding to the identified resources, many resources that are already available. I don't know, I copied that, so I don't know what it, IRM maybe, I don't know, are available to teachers can be leveraged to support learning and promote positive relationships. Using the identified resources from the instructional and support resources chart, it says respond to the guiding prompts below. Okay, here are the guiding prompts. Number 1, you are to select 2 resources from the completed instructional support resources chart. Once you complete your chart, then you can select 2 resources from the chart, okay? Then you are to explain how you would use each one of those resources in the classroom for student learning, okay? Let's say that we decided that we were going to select the Historical Society, the museum. Well, how would you use the museum in your classroom if you were going to the museum?
You could talk about, depends on what kind of museum you was going to, for one thing.
We're going to the Museum of Natural Science. We're just looking
Okay,
at
we could
stuff.
talk about the sun, plants, the way they grow, things like that.
Right. So if you knew your natural science museum would have plants or animals, you would have had a unit taught on animals before you go to the museum. That's all. We're not just going to go for, but we are going to go for fun, but we're going to enhance what we taught in the classroom. So that's all. So if that's on your chart, then you can utilize that in your classroom. Okay. So understanding classroom norms, protocols, and agreements. Now, I want to go back because I just want to make sure that you remember to select 2 of those resources and explain how you would use each in your classroom to support student learning. And that would be whatever resources you put on your chart, not the one that we provided for an example. But we use this one because we are discussing. All right, so let's look at text box 1.1.3. Norms, protocols, and agreements. The norms and the protocols are I say rules and regulations are the things that have been established in your classroom in order to make sure that classroom runs or functions well. Okay? So activity 3 is understanding classroom norms, protocols, and agreements. Every classroom operates according to a set of norms, protocols, and agreements. Do you have a class? Do you teach?
Yes, ma'am.
You have norms, protocols, and procedures in your classroom, right?
Yes, ma'am. I set the tone in the beginning of the year.
There you go. That's what we're supposed to do, good classroom management. But some of these norms, protocols, and agreements are established by the teacher or the school, whereas others are created by students and teachers working together. So sometimes we come together and let our students help us develop those classroom rules and procedures and the consequences. And trust me, sometimes the students are harder on their classmates than you would probably be. So also it says, that's right, access and review the norms and protocols and or agreements from the classroom to which you are assigned and then respond to the guiding prompt. So what they want you to do with this is to review what those norms are in the classroom, review what the protocols are or the agreements, and of course respond to the upcoming prompts. Now, a norm or protocol in the classroom might be that a long time ago, people used to allow the students to go to the bathroom anytime they felt like it, as long as they pulled the paddle. There was a paddle for the boys and a paddle for the girls. Well, you can say, well, we're going to do, you're free to go to the restroom at any time we're doing seat work. Okay, so that would be a normal protocol that you would discuss, maybe, that has been developed. Okay, so once you select the one that you want to talk about, it says select a particular characteristic that you listed in the knowledge of individual students in the contextual factors chart. Now, we got to go back to the contextual factors chart that I talked about last week, so got to stay focused. We have the contextual factors chart, and we have the instructional and support resources chart. Then it says, based on the selected characteristic, explain how resource from the instructional and support resources chart differ from the 2 discussed in the previous prompts. Okay, that would have been the 2 that you selected before. It said that could enhance student learning or impact the learning environment. Now we're going through this. You don't have to do the guiding prompts. We just want you to be aware of what is required to provide you knowledge and understanding. So when you student teach, this won't be a surprise to you, okay? What's important to me right now is that you know how to complete the chart and that you know how to write your letter, you know how to locate a get to know you activity and get those done, because if you can do those, then you certainly can respond to the prompts. So my purpose today is just to inform you as to what those prompts look like. Does that make sense? We're not going to respond to the prompts. We just want to give you that information. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. It does.
Okay. So I just wanted to show you what the contextual factors chart looked like because I talked about it last week. I just want to, here is the question was, select a knowledge of students, and here it is here. So it's from the contextual factors chart. It also had general context of your students, and that meant that you talked about the grade and developmental levels, the age ranges of the students. It also talked about the community there as well. It talked about the district, it wanted you, and the school, the percentage of the students who are on free and reduced lunch and those kinds of things. It talked about the classroom demographics, and then of course the knowledge of students. And when it talked about the knowledge of students, which this prompt asked you to do, based on the characteristic, explain how resource from the instructional support resources chart different from the two discussed in the previous prompt. So if you talk about how they were going to, I'm sorry, I apologize. Well, you do that, but then also you come back to the one on the knowledge of the individual student in the contextual factors chart. So, and it has knowledge of students in your contextual factors chart. So just look at the guiding prompts. Okay. Okay. So this slide is kind of out of order, but it says, when you talk about the norms and the protocol, describe one example of the classroom norm, protocol, and agreement. Explain how the norm, protocol, and agreement facilitates instruction and enhances student learning and impacts the student learning. Describe one example of technology, the norm, the protocol, and agreement, and explain how that norm, protocol, and agreement facilitates instruction, enhances student learning, and impacts the student learning. Okay? So 1-3, the guiding prompt, is also to identify and describe one norm, protocol, agreement that you and your students could create together. Explain how the norm, protocol, or agreement would facilitate instruction, enhance student learning, and or impact the learning environment. And it says type your response to the text. Okay. And so we've gone through each one of those, and I want to go back over. I'm sorry, talking too much today. Okay, so 1.2 is available resources to enhance student learning. 1.1.3 are the norms, protocols, and agreement. And I think that's where we're going to stop for today. So that's the next one for your, to complete your instructional support and resources chart. Okay, so you have to be prepared for week 4. You need to start on your contextual factors chart. You need to start on your instructional resources chart. You could have started on your get to know your student activity if you want to do that now. I'm going to do that next week. And then a document that demonstrates the communication with students' families. So I'll do those two next week and kind of go over the information for the guiding prompts for that, just to give you the information and the knowledge that you need to be aware of the PPAT. Again, you do not have to take the PPAT at this point in time. It is a student-teacher internship, task, assignment, assessment, but for EDU 487, we are required to review task 1. So your assignments for task 1 is to submit the 2 charts, the getting to know you activity, and a letter home supporting some type of communication. All right, any questions, any comments, any concerns?
No, so if I already do a newsletter in my classroom, I do EC resource, so I pull groups. But I do a newsletter because a lot of times the EC kids are kind of left out.
Yes.
And I just try to do a little bit extra with my babies because they're important to me. So I see little things that we're doing in our classroom to the parents. So can I just use what I normally send?
Yes, ma'am. You can certainly do that now. And I'll talk about this letter next week. If not, I'll post it up. And what I need you to do in that is, okay, I need you to make sure that I see, because ETS is going to want this. you to introduce yourself, tell a little bit about yourself. We don't want the whole newsletter about you, but you introduce yourself, talk about the students in your classroom, the diversity in your classroom, and how you will address the diversity in your classroom, how you teach, because that diversity is supposed to guide our teaching for us. You know, if you have Hispanic students, you have Black students, you have Asian students, and as you are teaching, you need to pull in from their culture so that they'll be interested. That's what that's about. And you could close out your communication with always making sure that parents have a way to communicate with you, contact you. So those three things are vitally important about yourself, how you're going to address the different diverse groups in your classroom, what does your teaching look like, what lesson planning do you use your lesson plans in order to make sure that every student is valued in the classroom, and of course how they can get up with you, how they can contact you in the event that they have some issues. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Any questions? Do you understand about the PPAT, the process for the PPAT, and what you have to do as you student teaching? And you may be, are you residency?
Yes, ma'am.
But what happens with you is you will do it in your classroom when it's time. That will be your I guess your student teaching. That'll be your practice, but you will still have to do it even in your residency classroom. In your classroom, in your own classroom. Traditional students will be assigned, but you will have your own, but you will complete the task based on your classroom and submit those. And as I told you last week, it's $300, so might want to be putting some back. Sometimes it's a hard hit for some people, but
yeah.
Okay.
It is. So this is going to be our regular Zoom night.
Yes, I'm thinking at 6.
Okay.
I have another class. They wanted to Zoom at 6. I can't do 2 classes at 6. Oh, Tuesday night at 6. I tried to do them at 5. So we'll see how it works.
Okay. I just want to be present because I wrecked my brains looking for a link last week. I was like, oh my God, I missed class.
That's all right. And this is not required. It's not required. So if you miss classes, it doesn't count against you. And I try to post it. If it records well, sometimes it doesn't. You know how technology can be. But the PowerPoint will always be there. So
I just think it's just the respect of it. If I can get here, I'm in class, I should be there if you're there. I mean, just the respect of it for me.
That's fine if you can. Now I know towards the end of the month I normally have 2 other classes that I teach, but I hopefully will be finished by 6 o'clock for that class. The other class, the 480 class, I may have to move it away from 5, so I don't know. And I try to do Tuesdays because if I wait till Wednesday, half the week is gone, so you need to get to work on your assignments. So.
Okay.
Any questions, any comments, any concerns?
No. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome a lot.
All right. Have a good rest of the week.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Bye-bye.